we're here, and there's no Zach.
There's no Zach. Shane, it's just you and I. We got to carry it. You ready to help carry?
Shortest podcast of all time, or it's going to be the most streamlined, efficient podcast of all time. I don't know which one it'll be.
Both of those could mean the same thing.
Yeah, maybe. Or we get 30 minutes of gold. Zach doesn't pontificate. I think he knows too much about too many things, and then it's just too easy to get sidetracked with him. So maybe, then again, I'm kind of a scatterbrain. So we'll see where this one takes us as our first official podcast, just you and I.
Yep. And I'm going to go off topic right off the bat because you just said something that took me in a different direction. So off. You mentioned he likes to pontificate about things. I don't know if you've looked and seen much. It just came out not long ago. Not long ago, meaning the last few weeks, maybe in the last month. Patrick Lencioni, author of 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, dropped a new book. It's called The 6 Types of Working Genius. I have it back there.
Yeah.
And it comes with a little assessment that kind of, it's not a personality assessment. It's really looking at where in the scale of, let's just say, a project, for example, or where do you find your working genius? When are you most effective and efficient? Where are you competent, and where are you most frustrated? And there's 6, obviously 6 working types. There's 6. You have 2 genius types, you have 2 competencies and 2 frustrations. And when you said pontification, that resonates with one of those, which is wonder. And as we think about how the flow of a show goes, having someone who likes to wonder about things really helps you dive in and create things. It also helps you digress at times.
Yeah.
Whereas if you are at the end of that, then for me, because they're my frustrations, or executing on it, is where it can be. If that's your frustration, staying on task is something that's hard for you to do. And I don't know, it's a good book. Anyone likes it, read it. But I think this show is a lot about wonder and ideation. That's one of the other working geniuses. And those actually, wonder and ideation, are where I score the highest, is where my genius is. Their word, not mine. I'm very careful about that. But it's coming up with these big questions and then developing ideas on how to solve, then breaking through the mud and the idea, getting a little further and deeper to break it apart, find the holes and the gaps in the idea that you've come up with, building support around it, putting people in the right spot to actually go execute, and then staying with it all the way to the end of completion. And
we are on a good topic then.
You're right, because that's exactly where I was going. Because when we think about this, you helped put together the wonder of several ideas we want to talk about, and we're going to put in some ideation, and we're at least going to get so far today as to, I think, start poking holes in some of those ideas around a topic, and we'll go from there. So Shane, why don't you cue us up on the topic?
Yeah. So I think we had discussed this last episode, but jumping into texting, and that's obviously, a broad category, but how can schools text prospective students in a way that's engaging, in a way that aligns with what they're looking for, in a way that's different than hitting tweet, hitting send on that email? So at a very high level, kind of what you think about texting as a, means of communication, and maybe, in theory, how schools could use it to kind of, again, complement all the other things they're doing, and not just be another channel to, blast people with mass information.
Well, it's already another channel. People are blasting people with information. We meaning as anyone involved in sending out mass communication, not just in higher ed and industry. We've ruined SMS. Like, I don't know that we've crossed anywhere near the point we have with email, and how we ruined that as a medium to connect. But we're blasting out. How do you engage and connect with prospective students? I think there's always going to be variation in your population that you're trying to recruit. Sending that SMS to me versus someone who's 16 or 17 is very different. First, and not that I'm represent every male adult prospective student, but I will tell you, you're not going to get my phone number to SMS. And if you do get it, you certainly aren't going to get my opt-in for it. I keep my SMS clean. I don't want people marketing to me for anything. I'm very protective. And I will tell you, it was 2019. I was at a HubSpot conference. How many episodes do we have where I don't talk about HubSpot? Not many. It was Inbound is the HubSpot main conference, and a speaker said he wanted everybody to pull out their phone, and I want you to trade with the person next to you. Open your phone, unlock it, and then trade to the person next to you. Now that was, I don't know how many people I've ever unlocked and just given my phone to someone, but the person I traded with, and I don't remember the person's name, what stood out to me more than anything else, and honestly, I don't even remember what else they wanted us to do with the phone. They just said trade. I traded, and I opened up this person's phone, and there were 1,700 unread SMS messages. So what's the likelihood of getting through the clutter to that person? Like, that person has already given up on SMS.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's in my mind. So how do I connect with my population, that, if it's traditional, teenaged person, and get through the clutter? Because I have a feeling that aged person doesn't mind SMSs coming up. They're not going to be as protective as I am. But if it comes through and they get those 1,600 in there, how do you really get that? And I think it goes back to the same key ingredients, regardless of channel: timing, relevance. Like, you need those things, and personalization. And I've actually had this conversation with clients in the past. Relevance and personalization, two different things.
Yeah.
Personalization may include, but doesn't stop, certainly at mail merge the first name. But I want it to be personal to me, written in a way that comes across one-to-one. And then I want to be sure that it's relevant about things that I care about.
Yeah.
And SMS, by the way, I want to keep one more thing. Yeah. With SMS, you may not always know, especially at the early stages of engagement with someone, what their interests are.
Yeah.
All right.
Right.
But there's ways to find it out without specifically say, hey, tell me what you're interested in. There's ways beyond that. You can ask that. But if you're using an SMS tool that doesn't then connect to a CRM that puts in the data in the CRM about what they click on, you are wasting opportunity to find out what they are interested in. If your CRM then doesn't track what they're doing on your website, once they click, you get there. If your emails aren't doing it, you want all those clicks in there, and then you can see what they're interested in. And then you can make the SMS relevant.
Yeah.
I'll turn it back to you. You were going to go somewhere.
Yeah. I think the big thing I think about with texting is who initiates the conversation.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I've had a lot of good experiences with brands and texting, because I reached out to them. They are not spamming me with, hey, we have this sale, we have this. I always opt out of those. But I have been in, 3 times at least in the last 2 months, where I've had either an issue with a product, I'm setting up a new product, or I'm looking to buy an additional product made by the same company and wondering, can I get some type of discount? Can I do whatever? And I don't want to be on chat, because I don't want to be sitting at my computer and kind of have to wait for that response. You don't know how long it's going to take. Or with text, I can kind of fire it off and just be like, my phone will ping me when it's there. And that's been incredible. And because I initiated it though, and they know exactly what I want because I'm leading with my initial question. And I'm wondering how maybe you think schools could adopt that kind of like wait for the student to initiate, but then how do you encourage them to initiate? And maybe that's even things like starting their application and following up about, deadlines, for example, and what your thoughts are there. So
I think it starts with the opt-in, and sometimes the opt-in is the person generating that conversation to start with you in that medium.
Yep.
Opt-in is if I want to move to that medium and they didn't start with that medium. There are times I might be chatting with a coworker and say, hey, I'm moving this to chat, or I'm moving this to email, right? I'm informing them that I'm moving it because with a particular reason to do that. If they start with email, you need to have a reason to move over to SMS. A, you want an opt-in for them. B, you don't want to feel like you're crossing bounds. And some people, I'm one of them, would feel like you just crossed a boundary with me that I didn't sign up for. I don't want to have that type of message with you. So I think that's something to keep in mind. And when I say opt-in, it's not always just a check box to say, can we communicate with you in SMS? I like to get multiple types of opt-ins for that. And I'm going to circle back to your question on the text to chat service type thing. But the multiple opt-ins, application. You should talk about how do we get them to generate an application. Then I think that's part of your texting chat conversation in there is if it's someone who has not yet applied, walking them through the steps and say, are you ready to start your application? Let me send you a link to do it. Then you can start doing that. If it's an automated SMS, as part of a campaign that you have, I think you have to know, and this is where relevance comes into play here is, where are they in the spectrum of raising their hand of initial point of inquiry to the point of applicant to the point of enrollment? Where are they? And how does that look within your cycle? So if it is spring and you're talking to a high school junior, that's not application. You're not pushing them to that application point. You're pushing them to an event likely to connect with you, whether that's them come to your campus, you reaching out to them and doing some virtual thing, but you're trying to get that event thing. And so you're not necessarily pulling. So that's where timing comes into play and relevancy of where I am and understanding that. If it's July and I'm a non-traditional student, we've got a few weeks yet before the term starts. I'm just raising my hand. Speed to application is really important in that scenario, and therefore you might jump right in. And in terms of getting them to engage, then that SMS is going to be focused like an email, but in a different way. And I think that's the key, is that you don't just blast the same message in email or even the same thing you might post everybody on Twitter or Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, wherever you're doing it. But SMS is, and I'm going to give them that link in a short one. I like to do the SMS more from a person than an organization. Yeah. And so if I am emailing with you about something you're showing this interest or talking on the phone, I might ask, hey, in case you're running behind, do you mind if I send you a reminder before the deadline gets here? That's an opt-in. Yeah. I've got them in a campaign. Mm-hmm. And I've jumped right into that. For a traditional age student, if say we're talking about application and we want them to finish an application they've started, it might be, would you like to receive updates as your application is updated or status has changed? And they reply yes. The response is fantastic. We'll keep you updated. By the way, would your parents also like to be updated? Mm-hmm. Get their number.
That's a good one.
Opt them right in. Yeah. Boom, boom, boom. Those are multiple opt-ins. Those things, that's the data I'm talking about, because that starts to show intent and interest.
Right.
And there's a lot of people that know good data on parents and their enroll with the traditional age student of getting them in. And I think in those scenarios, once you understand that influence that a parent has, because it is great, that influence is great. Oh, yeah. You want to get them engaged, and that is a way to get the student to opt in and also get their parents opted in. And you want to keep them separate. Now, not every CRM does that easily, but you want to separate those two numbers and communicate with the timing is different, the content is different, what is relevant to them is different, and you have to keep that in mind. Now, that's a big thing. If you've not done anything like it, it is you don't cross that line in one fell swoop. You have to work your way there, and the key is then building out stages. How do we get there from where we are today? And maybe that's 3 steps, maybe it's 7 steps, maybe it's 1 step, depending on how close you are. But those are the ways. And when we're talking with folks that are about growth, that's growth. That's how you go, and that's how you turn those things into something of relevancy. Can I answer that?
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think, you kind of hammered that last point home. That was going to be my kind of follow-up, but you already answered it. Was having a system, like you said earlier, that you can report on all these things to understand where people are at in their journeys. So that, again, it just increases your relevancy score, like on, Google search ads. The more you're speaking directly to this audience using those keywords, right, the more your relevancy score goes up, the more likely, your ads are to be seen. Same thing with texting. The more relevant you can be from a timing standpoint, from where somebody's at and their student life cycle, the higher open rates, the response rates you're going to get. And then getting that parent, I forget what the number was. This was a couple of years ago. I had just randomly come across a stat of the number of parents who complete the application for the student, and it's a
scary number.
I wasn't expecting a certain number. I remember thinking that was shockingly high, like 2-3x what I thought it might be.
Yeah.
And so I think, your point about trying to get the parents' contact information too, and again, teasing out each of the stages of the application as well, making sure that you're, requesting certain things, letters of recommendation on time. There aren't things that are all just, oh, I just need to fill out this quick thing and I'm done. And so being able to kind of tee people up for things and kind of keeping them on progress to complete by, by the deadline, I think is a super great way to kind of hold people accountable and not feel like you're being annoying, but you can constantly be in front of them because there are so many checkpoints. There are so many things that, need to be completed. And that's a great way, again, to have high relevance, but still be at the forefront of their mind constantly throughout that entire cycle.
And the couple of add-ons here, because I see a lot of schools who have SMS but don't have it connected to anything else, so they're loading students in, or they might have it connected to bring students in automatically to the SMS tool itself, but then they're not connecting that to any other part of the communication. And that in that point, typically, A, they are blasting everybody. B, even if they wanted to segment, they can do some basic segmentation, but it's only by population type, demographic stuff. It's not going to be a whole lot of great activity data in there that you can segment off. And even if you can do that in your tool, if you don't have it connected to another engagement tool, and I don't mean your student information system, folks. If you don't have that connected to your CRM, then your CRM is losing data. If you then separate from that to say, oh, we don't have a choice, so got to keep it separate. You need to have a documented communication plan that overlays email, physical mail, phone call outreach if you're doing that, and SMS if you're doing anything on WhatsApp. That all needs to be in, especially if it's automated, needs to be in one place so that you can see it all. Because I don't know if you remember, if Zach saw this in the Secret Shopper study last year. I know I've seen it in the past. Conflicting emails and an automated campaign drop to a person at the same time or within a day of one another.
Yeah.
And that is not good.
Yeah.
That's a time you don't want the student reaching out to you to ask that question. And so I think that's really an important piece of it. And a lot of times in technology, if you have it all embedded, you can find a single view of what's scheduled to go out. You can kind of see that better, especially if you have a more modern based platform where you can do drag and drop workflows, and it can trigger all the media type you're using to engage versus just email. Then you can see that better. It's better to understand it and to know what criteria. Now, again, generally, even if you see that, it's for a campaign, not all campaigns. But that's where you start to think about, okay, here's day 0. And if you can run tests in the technology, that's the other thing. You can run tests to say, okay, when would this go out? When would all the campaigns go out? And then you could see, okay, it looks like here's some overlap or here's conflicting information. Your next step is this, and another email come out and said, hey, I want you to do this. Well, which of the two do you want?
Yeah.
Right. That's what you want to be mindful of when you're thinking, is because it gets to be more and more complex. And I don't know of anyone that's going to disagree with that statement.
Yeah.
And you need to simplify it, and bringing it together so that you can see it, experience it, and test it is really a critical step in that. And then also think about, how much am I going to grow, and what data do I have that will help me grow that next. When I say grow, what's the next campaign that we can do, or the next message we could drop into a campaign that we can't do now? That's, another big piece of this is understanding what is next, so that you keep that going. And, that's how you get to be more relevant. You're not going to be perfectly relevant.
Right.
Right. But what is one step forward in relevancy?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think another thing to kind of, like next step, somebody hears, I think, all of these things, right? And I think it's maybe things that people could think, well, I already kind of knew that. Like, yeah, but how do I do that? Like, who on the team, is it marketing? Is it admissions? Is it somebody from both? Who on the team kind of helps sit down and go, okay, we're at day 0 of our texting plan, of our marketing plan as a whole, right? We want to weave in texting this year. We have a pretty good system for everything else. And we kind of know what works, what doesn't work when it comes to email, when it comes to, mailers, all these other things. But now we're going to weave in texting this year. Who's in the room kind of discussing that, and who owns that? And then from an execution standpoint, who's probably best to do, the writing of these texts? Because as you were saying, I think one of the things beyond relevance, personalization, and timing is just general creativity and differentiation. So let's start with like day 0. who's in the room trying to figure out texting strategy, and then at what point when we're building this out, who's kind of helping with that and who's responsible for the copy of those texts.
So that's like a multi-component project that you're working on, because you've got many factors that go in there. So you want somebody who understands the entire campaign of what it will all look like. And that can be at a high level, but it needs to be somebody that can actually go pull it and show it. Mm-hmm. So you need someone with that level of detail. You need someone in the room who can ask the wonder type questions we just talked about. Boy, this thing's really going to tie in after I brought it up. But this working genius model, you need somebody who can bring up and ask those questions. Someone that can then start to build ideas off of them. What if we did this? And then you need somebody who can break apart and understand, well, that's not going to work because our SMS tool is not tied together. I don't know and can't bring out of the CRM and put into our SMS tool whether or not they did this action, that they attended this event. Those type, you need somebody who can poke those holes so you're like, oh, that won't work. Well, that doesn't mean that idea is dead. It means you need to potentially, it could be dead, but it also means we could pivot. What if we knew this? Or, well, we don't have that information as part of SMS. SMS admin in the room, can I get that in there? Mm-hmm. Can we get that out of the CRM? I think I can pull it out of the CRM, but is there a place to put it in the SMS? Can we create a place to put it? Yes or no in the SMS tool? Okay, then I can bring that in, and then we can start filtering down on it, and then you can start putting it. But you've got to get from this wonder of how do we do this, ideas based upon it, break apart to find the holes of what will and won't work. Too many times, what can happen, and this is where it can go wrong. Someone says the wonder and gives an idea. Let's do this. Hands it off. Isn't around for anything else, and not that they have to be around for all of it, but then the people that have to put it in action find there's some holes in it. Yeah. And they either don't put it in action at all or put it into action. And then the person who had the idea was like, wait a minute, that's not what we wanted. Why is it going out like this? And I'm sure a lot of people listening are like, they're raising their hand. That happened to me. You got to circle back to that conversation. You got to get back to say, okay, here was what we wanted to try to do. Here was the ideas, the way we're going to do it. Here's how we understand that they can and can't work. Here is what we've got, how we've modified it, and we put it into play and we tested it. It will look like this. Are we good? You also asked about content. You very rarely is the person that can build the logic flow superbly and knows how to add those data elements to your SMS or CRM, whatever. Very rarely are your content writers. Now, you may disagree with me on this one. And if you don't, there will be people that disagree. I don't know how much of a unicorn I need to be with SMS. I can't do a whole lot visually. Right. Now, I need to be creative in a sense that here's this, we need to talk about an event we want to have. And this is how we've been doing it in email. And this is how we're going to do it on social media. You got to find a way to make it different and relevant. And so I think in that scenario, there needs to be a process by which communication is developed where you're asking for all media. So this is going to go out on email. This is going to go out on SMS. It's going to go on social. Who is my audience? How do they differ? What are the various relevancy pieces to it? So that then when you get to actually write the content, you know how to make it relevant in each of those channels. Because there should be differentiation across the channels. There should be differentiation for why it's important for me to attend versus you, Shane, unless we're interested in the exact same program, entered the process at the exact same time, coming with the exact same scenario and want the exact same outcome. Okay, but if any of those differ, then if that event connects to any one of those areas where we differ, it needs to be more relevant. Yeah. And that's the critical piece. And to go into it saying we've never done this before, and we're just going to make everything relevant is not going to work. Yeah. What you need to find are the broadest, most basic pieces of communication. Start with those, the ones that are performing the worst.
Yeah. Yeah.
And find ways to make those relevant, trade them out, test it, see how it works. And if that works, then you increase that tenfold. Find 10, 15 other messages, or find 5 other messages and create a brand new campaign altogether for that relevant group. Yeah. And then test. And once you find what works there, then now you're ready to do this at mass scale.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's a good thing. that you said earlier about not always needing to be a unicorn being the most creative. There are going to be those texts kind of, again, in the application process that are a little bit more transactional. It's, hey, you need to do this thing by this date.
Correct.
You can make it sound as fun as you want, but it's only ever going to be, hey, fill out this paper.
Right. Because an SMS is a sentence.
Right.
Maybe two.
Right.
And you've got to get them to that action. And so transactional is key there.
Right.
And that's important. So you're answering a question.
Mm-hmm.
They may or may not have asked you the question in a text. You might be promoting something, but promoting in a way that I'm answering the question.
Yeah.
The next event you need to attend is coming up in 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Find out more. I mean, I don't know if you saw your email. There's this event, whatever it is, in 3 weeks. Check that email or click here.
Yeah.
You really should attend.
Right.
It's got to be succinct, and you're driving to an action. I'm not a huge fan of a bunch of fluff in SMS. Yeah. Obviously, I don't even open up any. I don't open up my phone number. I don't give my phone number to people for any fluff stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not opposed to some messages coming through that might be automated that aren't necessarily all action oriented, to mix it up a little bit. Again, you got to test and see that. I want to know what the heck that's for and how does that connect. But then, that's what that medium to me is a quick read and click to engage, to do something.
Yeah.
And you can get through that way more. And if you abuse it, the channel for your prospects, you're going to lose them in everything.
Yeah.
And so that's why I think intentionality is really important in this. And so that you think about, how am I using this? And I really need to get there. So,
right. And that's, I think goes back to your point way at the beginning of this conversation of talking about, you want to chat with somebody one-on-one. You want to, talk to another person. And I feel like when you feel that, you're kind of probably more obligated to say yes to additional communications, to interact a little bit more, because you feel like, again, there's another person on the other side of the line, kind of just, tapping their thumbs on an iPhone as well. And so being able to bucket, let's say for events, right, of athletes who are interested in this sport versus this sport, and sending them like, hey, our football coach is going to be there. We think it'd be awesome if you guys could meet, events this date, this time, whatever. Right. Yep. Versus people that are interested in a club, interested in a fraternity, whatever it might be. Right. You can separate all those things and give people like, hey, Mickey, we know you're interested in this thing. You already told us. Yep. Here's why we think you should come, specific to that thing. That I think, again, differentiates without being super creative or feeling like, oh, I got to sit here forever and come up with something that's so incredibly quippy that they'll just laugh so hard at this text and then come to the event. Yes,
if I like to engage with humor. I enjoy that. But so two things. I want to touch on that, but I want you to bring me back to the chat for support thing. I want us to circle back to that.
Yeah.
But you just gave me an idea. If I have an event on campus, open house, a lot of different activities going on through the day. You got people all over the place. And there might be certain things at certain times. This is where relevancy can really help. Mm-hmm. Say I'm walking with a family and I'm having lunch. What if you timed your SMS to say, hey, looks like you're interested in Greek life. The Greek life presentation is in 15 minutes in this building.
Yeah.
You're sending them update. And you're only going to send that to people who've indicated that as an interest.
Right.
Click here for the link to walk you there, to guide you to that room or to that building. Mm-hmm. Right. Those are the types of relevancy pieces we're talking about. And imagine that, we're like, boom, you're getting alerts. Now, at a conference, you're going to have a conference app, and it's going to give you, hey, this event's starting in 15 minutes. I don't know if anybody's attended a conference that has that. If it's small, probably not, but bigger conferences will. Right. You'll feel the buzz in the phone. You're like, oh, conference app has got a notification. Same thing, but you may not be able to do that for your campus, but you could do it through an SMS. Right. And I think that's really the Residence Hall X open house starts in 15 minutes. Click here to get there. Those types of things. Want to see President Smith talk about her journey as an alum of our great institution. Fireside chat in the lounge here, those are great ways to kind of transactional, quick, moving people around.
Yeah. I
want to come back though to your to the thought about this chat, because I agree. Like if I'm working, need to have a customer service type conversation with a company. I don't always have my laptop there. because I like when I'm done at work, I'm upstairs. My laptop's not downstairs with me. I don't want to necessarily have it there. I will likely do it on my iPad versus my iPhone, but I will, because then I can see a little bit more and I can jump on a website. But I agree, it's easier to do it with SMS. I think the key is most schools don't have the technology that can cross over.
Yeah,
it exists, but not everybody has it. And this is where schools can get in trouble without the right strategy. They like that idea.
Yeah.
They hear, I want that. They go find a piece of technology and do it, and they don't, without any care or regard, to be like, oh, well, like they can send something into our website and it comes here on this tool's app, and then I can chat with them. You're not getting that recorded into the contact student's record because it's not through the CRM. You got to think about, can this tool, and vendors, to their credit, they hear schools interested and they're going to go sell, and they don't care that it doesn't connect or that it connects with Salesforce, but it doesn't connect with Slate. They don't care because they want that sale. Mm-hmm. And that's where I see schools getting in trouble. They want this Amazon experience because that is a fundamental piece to an Amazon type experience, right? Yeah. You can cross channels, you can buy, you can chat, whatever through those. But if you want the Amazon experience, Amazon's going to put the right technology together, and they're not going to go with that if it doesn't connect and put everything in the same system they can see it.
Yeah.
That's part of it. And if you don't have that question in your head and you're not going through that or bring other people to the table that can have the right questions and get that, then you're not going to get an Amazon experience. You're going to get a Kmart experience. And we all know what the Kmart experience happened. It's no Mart because it doesn't exist. And so that's what you have to be very careful of, because I see so many schools, they've got chat on the site now. There's no connection to CRM. It can't connect because it's some little stupid bot that somebody thought, oh, it's affordable. That's chat should only be $1,000. No, chat that doesn't connect with anything, that can't be used for more than just one person talking with someone on a website, can't be.
Yeah. It's
got to connect to other tools so that then you, if you don't, you can't get to relevancy. That's how you know that.
Yeah.
That doesn't. And by the way, that chat conversation that you have over SMS, now I've got your telephone number. Doesn't mean you've opted into all SMS, which is fine. But I also know what other information. If it's in your record, I know what you're asking about.
Yeah.
I can put topics to it. And whether it's through SMS or whether it's through email, I can start emailing you other content around those types of questions.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right? I got assigned the blue residence hall. I didn't want that. I want the red residence hall. And now I can start sending content about, well, maybe I can't change it. What makes blue so awesome?
Yeah, exactly.
This famous alum attended here and lived in blue.
Right.
You know that. How do we get relevancy so that I can start turning that student's opinion around, or maybe they can move, or something along, or they sign up for blue and I want them to sign up for red. I can start promoting red.
Yeah.
Those things. You can't do when you don't connect the technology. It's going to come back to that. And so that's really important when you're thinking about it.
Yeah. And that's where I feel like a lot of, going back to your earlier point too, of someone who maybe has the wonder and has the ideas, there's a lot of maybe potential throwing out of ideas that haven't been thought through, but are felt like they're needed. So, hey, we need to be on texting. And then it's kind of like mic drop, they walk away, and now a team's scrambling to figure out.
And that's how the bad tool gets purchased.
Right. And then
what do you mean I can't find out what this student said in SMS? Right. Well, because that tool doesn't have it. Why not? Because you just said get SMS.
Yeah. And then that's when you get the same thing you brought up earlier too, of the miscommunication. Email says one thing, text says another thing, because you tried to rush it, you tried to force it. They're not talking to each other. And now you're potentially pissing somebody off who, if you would have just had email, could have been a student. But because they kind of had this super negative experience, you extrapolate that and think, if that's going to be the next 4 years, I'm not super pumped about that. And you're doing more harm and not even realizing it because you felt some pressure to be, using a tool that others are using well. And you tried to rush into it just to say that you're there.
Yeah. And it's not working well.
Without even realizing it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's tough. Awesome. So I think maybe one big takeaway here, again, just to kind of summarize everything. If somebody listens to this and they're like, all right, they want to do the mic drop, we need to be on texting. What are the first 3 things they should really do and think about to ensure that they're ready for texting before kind of moving forward and even looking at platforms?
To know if you're ready, do you have people that can write content, that can twist it, do it, that have the time to commit to figure out, how do I change this message to make it right for texting? B, what tools are out there that can actually connect to our CRM? Does that matter or not for us? Mm-hmm. And I really would love to talk to you if you say it doesn't matter. I'd love to hear your reason. I don't want to debate you. I'll let you have the full floor of that. You convince me. Fine. Would love to hear it, because anyone that listens to me talk for any length of time knows I think it should be connected, but there may be reasons for it. And so I think that, and then before I get into it, we talked about content. I would talk about the relevancy and timing. Mm-hmm. If I don't have anything relevant or anything timed, I'm going to take the effort for a new channel. You're going to waste the channel if you don't do the relevant timing. And so can you begin relevancy and timing and improving upon that in your other channels while you go make a purchase, while you go implement and get it configured and ready, and then start building that content out? Because if you don't have anything else relevant, the likelihood that you have all the data you need together to filter, to put together the list that gives you the person that something's relevant for, you're not going to be able to do that in SMS either. Yeah. And so you have to start putting that together. And it doesn't mean you've got to go rewrite everything and make it relevant, because you may not be able to yet, but you'll go through the process to figure out, who are we talking to? Where are they in the enrollment process? What are they interested in? And so that you can then start to find and form this relevancy piece to it. And then you can apply it to multiple channels. But if you don't have that done, don't just go jump into SMS. It's multiple tracks here to this work, concurrent tracks of effort to get there, and relevance would be the third thing.
Perfect. I put you on the spot there too. We did not prep that, but I felt like that.
I know. I had to pause and think for a second. There's a little slight delay.
That's good.
When you said that, I was like,
it's my wonder brain. Yeah.
That's right.
Got to know.
Yeah.
Need some actionable insights. That's awesome. Well, thank you everybody for listening. Super appreciate it. First episode in the books without Zach. I think we did a pretty decent job.
I think we did pretty good.
Hopefully,
I wouldn't let him listen, because he might get a little jealous. Might get to be a little awkward in the office there, Shane. So don't let him listen.
Will do. All righty. Have a good one.
Yep. Thanks for listening, everyone.